Today when I turned on the news and I saw Richard and Michael Chavez were charged with crimes of animal cruelty. Crimes, not rumors, crimes. Now we know why they were so bad at keeping records. They were hiding all of their own crimes. Now, I really hope they start talking and really go up the food chain so we can find out what happened. But I wanted to ask the council. I agree the shelter should remain open in some way, but we don't want history to repeat itself. We know what happened before. It was awful. But what we don't know is why it happened, how it happened, and how it was continued to happen. Basically, who ran interference for these two people? Have you done any internal investigation to find those things out? And if you haven't, are you planning on it?
I think the investigations that are being done by whatever bodies are what we're basically counting on.
Because people have been screaming about this for a long time, and there's no way that those two directors could have gotten away with it without help. And until you figure out that, history's going to repeat itself. So please, I would just ask you, figure that out. Thank you.
We definitely need to allocate resources to something like that. Obviously, corruption or wrongdoing is not to be tolerated.
But when someone complains, you have to take it seriously. It can't be swept under the carpet because it's expedient. And it can't be done to protect who's in power. And by the way, that whoever is in charge of that, it should not be a Teamster or a union member. It should be a manager who has experience with animals, helping animals, not killing them.
Yeah, and certified.
Thank you.
I just want to add to the subject of the shelter, since we're on that. Back in 2008, the Middlesex County Department of Health, Public Health Department, did a survey. They collected data, they did an analysis, and they determined, based on the comparative study, that the creation of a countywide animal control shelter was neither operationally nor economically feasible at the time. Okay, Nancy Martin pitched this shelter project as a no-kill, then a low-kill facility, and predicted all kinds of financial data and savings, and there was going to be 100% profit for the taxpayers here. Then when all this came down with the SPCA, and they came in and did their thing, Nancy put out a memo, or a email, where she says that all she read from the SPCA is a rescue type running of the shelter. I don't know what she means by rescue type, but and she further goes on to say the borough of residents cannot afford to have the shelter run on their tab. So you pitched a no-kill, low-kill shelter, yet when the SPCA comes in and cleans it up and does the right thing, you claim that the residents are going to pay for it on their tab. Really, what you were pitching then wasn't a low-kill, no-kill shelter. It was a slaughterhouse, because that's how you made $30,000, was by not feeding animals, even though you had food that was for free, by not investing anything. You know what? Sometimes to make money, you need to spend money, but to run a shelter, I don't know what you mean by rescue type shelter. It almost sounds like you think that they're trying to turn it into some kind of a sanctuary or something of that means. Shelter is a shelter. It provides shelter and safekeeping for animals until they can move on to the next place, back to their home, back to another home, whatever you have it. You can have community involvement. You can have volunteers. Plenty of people have stepped up to volunteer, many of which, like others have said, were never even called. You can't just open a building, pitch it to your people that it's going to be 100% profit, and not implicate any kind of programs or any kind of volunteer, and not have a 501c arm to help you with that. Not put animals on Facebook or on Pet Finder to try to find their owners. It's a moving thing. Animals come in, animals go out. They don't just stay. And I don't know what your idea of an original shelter was. If you think what the SPCA came in and did, which was catalog the animals, create files for them, post them, scan them for microchips to see if they were who they belonged to, if they were chipped, so they can be returned. you know, there's fees associated with that, with reclaiming your animal. There's, you know, there's monies that can come in and go and do it right. To think that, you know, when I read that, I was so disturbed. A rescue type, and you're not going to run it on your residence tab. What I would love to know what was in your head with the original proposal and what you really thought. I do remember reading somewhere early on where you said something to the effect of, "Why feed the cats? We're going to kill them anyway." And I will find that, and I will read it into the record at the next meeting. That's not a shelter, and if this town is going to have anything to do with the shelter and reopen it, it needs to be. You need to look at a town seriously, and I don't care. She says something here about Huntington County or one other and the difference between them and you is millions of dollars. That might be true as far as what the county, the town's net worth is or whatever, but that has no bearing on the type of operation when it comes to running a shelter. You need to look at a town that has an efficient shelter, that like Woodbridge, exactly. You know, I don't know that it's necessarily generating money to save the taxpayers from an increase. You know, generally speaking, municipal shelters are not an instrument. They're a drain on resources. They're not an instrument to provide. Okay, so you know, right from the get-go, that was an ass backwards idea or plan. And it was a lie to be sold as a no-kill, low-kill when the mayor apparently has no clue what that really means, what a shelter really means, or where she got the cockamamie idea, because she didn't do any homework. She didn't look at what, you know, she didn't talk to other towns that were running shelters that drained them, and towns that had successful shelters that maybe didn't drain them. I don't know that Woodbridge generates any big bucks for the town, but I'll tell you what, they run a hell of a shelter, and I know it's not draining the town either, because they have a 501, they have a great volunteer program, they have a great ACO. Who, those animals are, she advocates for them. You know, they're up on Pet Finder. They're you know, picked up. They're put on the website, on the Facebook page of the shelter, what town they were found in, and when and where, and does anyone know who they belong to? They're put on New Jersey Lost and Found. You know, and not even, you know, some of that stuff like New Jersey Lost and Found isn't even done by the shelter workers. Once that gets out there, once it's put up on the shelter page, there are people who manage these sites who then pick up the information and share it. So it's not even, you know, not all of these things become a burden of your town or of your specific shelter. But if you're going to do this, aside from the other suggestions that everyone else made about the newsletter and whatnot, which I think is a good idea, and I definitely think it's, you know, a good idea to seek community involvement. Maybe people would be here if they were welcomed here, if they felt, you know, if they were asked to be here, or if they, you know, knew there was a need for them to be here. But you should really look into modeling yourself, you know, or some type of a model to emulate for opening up